How do we differentiate pastoralists in Nigeria from those that are coming from outside? Because you must acknowledge that there are also those coming from outside. And, you know, Mr. Dogo made reference to the speech of Governor El Rufai, who acknowledged once that pastoralists who were coming into Nigeria were attacked during a political violence. I think it was, he says it was in the aftermath of a presidential election. And these people were affected and came back to come, and their cousins, uncles, whatever it is, came back to attack local populations. And it was upon investigation they found that out, and they had to pay compensation so that those killings will stop. So we cannot differentiate. We cannot say that those people too are not also a part of the conflict. How do we then begin to differentiate between local populations and those people who are not Nigerians?
It's very simple. The ECOWAS protocol on transhumans have made provision for that. What Nigeria needs to do is to domesticate the protocol, where you have entry points, you register the pastoralists, you issue them transhuman certificates. And then you
Should we still be allowing them to come into the country?
The protocols allows them. It's not only Nigeria.
Yes, but what if we opt out of the protocol? These things are not mandatory.
You see, you cannot just opt out of a protocol that is integrating the African continent. You see, the pastoralist movement is not for picnics. They go there to assess resources, land resources. And mind you, these boundaries you have are colonial boundaries. Some of them don't mean anything to the herders. So what we need to do is to domesticate the ECOWAS protocol, begin to enforce it, and we create grazing zones for these transhuman pastoralists that will come in.
If you say that this, I mean, if we acknowledge that, I mean, Nigeria is a country. It is a sovereign territory. Yes. It is marked by boundaries. If it doesn't mean anything to pastoralists, you know, we have to let them know that this is the boundary. And if Nigerian resources are for Nigerians, if we are saying that we don't want to give it to foreigners, shouldn't we have a right to opt out of it?
As long as you are a signatory to the ECOWAS protocol and you have not opted out of it, you are bound to respect the provisions of the protocol. If today our neighboring countries refuse to cooperate with us in terms of addressing the security challenges, we would have gotten to the level of degrading the Boko Haram. We must understand that it's a bilateral agreement that must be respected.
You have talked about genocide. You've also made the accusation and the allegation of genocide. I don't know whether, you know, Mr. Ngelsama agrees with you on that particular accusation. Do you also see a systematic agenda to eliminate local Fulani populations in the Middle Belt region?
Well, I will have to agree with him in this view, considering what took place up on the Mambila Mountains. A statement being denied by this guy. We have pictures, we have lists of names of the genocide that took place in Mambila. Even when the pastoralists have settled in their ranches, legally acquired ranches, they were forced out, they were systematically forced out of those ranches because the natives want to take the ranches by force, because they can't do it, they can't do that through any of the legal means, because these guys have titles on their ranches, they are the owners of the ranches, they have been practicing the ranching that is being propagated in the country. They have practiced ranching, but yet people want to force them out because they want to take the land by force. So these are the things. Look at, consider what took place in Demsa. It's over a stream of water. That stream is for everybody. The pastoralists are watering their cows, but they have to pay the natives before they water. Even where they fed, they were also asked to refer again. That was what ignited the Demsa crisis, where we lost quite a number of people there.
Mr. Ngelsama, when we see the same situation unfolding, let me just use Niger Republic as a case study. We see the same thing unfolding. Of course, Niger Republic does not have the level of diversity that we have in our country, both in terms of geography, language, ethnicity, and religion, etc. But the way they have dealt with it is to treat these armed herdsmen, because they are armed pastoralists even in Niger, as militants, not as any particular ethnic group or any particular religious kind of a phenomenon. Now, in your view, I want to just be very clear here. Is there no way that within your organization and within even Kaltohore, within your structures, all of the members you have, all the information that can be gathered, is there no way to separate those who are innocent from those who are militant? Because ultimately, your chief complaint, Mr. Al-Hassan, is that that there has been a level of segregation, a level of discrimination against your members with these laws, etc. But there's a foundation point, and that is obviously the weaponization of your pastoralists and the violence that has come as a result. So how do you address that by separating these people? Is it not possible at all?
Do we know them before we separate them? Are we also spared from their atrocities? We are also victims of their atrocities. We lost 2 million cows as a result of cattle rustling. Who are the owners of the cows in the country? They are the pastoralists. Today, the pastoralists are also affected by kidnapping.
Who were the people who rustled the cows? Were
Criminals.
Were they the local farmers?
Criminals. We call them criminals. We don't know them. This is left for security to verify. We don't know them. They are criminals. We consider them to be criminals.
I'm wondering, I mean, because the other side has also alleged a genocide, and there is also, it would seem, I mean, an attempt to land grab. They say that their communities are already being occupied by the people who come to perpetrate these killings. And if you also look at the numbers, even though it's very difficult to verify, we hear that, oh, Fulani people are murdered. Sadly, very, apart from what happened in Taraba, and even then it was very difficult to access the place. Channels Television was able to do that in conjunction with Kaderia Ahmed. They made a trip down to the Mambila, but by that time, you know, the bodies had been buried. Nevertheless, we hear that these people get killed. I mean, we hear that Fulani people get killed, but very rarely do we get to hear those reports until they are allegedly reprisal killings. And oftentimes the reprisals, in quote, are in very big numbers.
You see,
without really knowing the basis of what is going on.
The pastoralists have this disadvantage of not having their voices heard properly in this country. But for the data of the genocide against the pastoralists is in the records.
But don't they have associations?
Go and pick the Justice Nikitobi reports on the Commission on the Crisis on the Plateau in 2012. The reports are there. The post-election violence in 2011, we have documented 411 innocent pastoralists killed just in southern Kaduna for nothing. We have documented all the crises, but because we want peace, we want to promote the culture of peace and forgiveness, hoping that our neighbors we are staying with will still allow us to continue to do our economic business. But the issue of arms, light weapons, is a question of the security. And I believe they are on top of it. With the arrests they are making, we must acknowledge the efforts the security agencies have put in trying to curtail criminalities in this country. That is why people calling for the removal of the service chiefs are either the corrupt politicians or the ones working for them. We should not fall to that gambit.
Let's go to Lagos now.